Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and it's another quick solo show this week as the rest of our team out in Austin in particular kind of continues to recover from all of the weather issues and power issues that they ran into this last week. Basically just Texas's terrible infrastructure issues. Um, they're still kind of trying to return to normalcy, so hopefully we'll be back with like a semi-normal episode next week, but we will see. So this week I just wanted to do a quick episode again, this time looking at To All the Boys, Always and Forever, the third in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series of films, potentially the last, and based on the kind of the book series, presumably the last. But who knows? If Netflix wants to keep throwing money at this, I'm sure I and a ton of other people who, love the rom-coms will keep tuning in and watching. Um, I, yeah, I really got into To All the Boys I Loved Before a couple years ago. It was like just a nice little comfort food kind of rom-com to throw on Netflix in the background while I was like cleaning the apartment or something like that. I didn't enjoy uh, the second film, P.S. I Love You, as much. In particular, I thought it had kind of a lot of like overly contrived, like just, hey, if you guys just talk to each other, a lot of these issues wouldn't happen kinds of issues. I did love Jordan Fisher because he's great in pretty much everything he does, but in the role of John Ambrose coming into that film, it just kind of felt like a needless complication that yeah, I didn't think added a ton to the overarching saga of Lara, Jean, and Peter Kavinsky. But this was this third one was a nice kind of return to form. I really had a good time with it, and yeah, it was just a nice. It very much kind of harkened back to the original. In particular, I remember the really getting into and enjoying the soundtrack of the original film. I feel like the second film didn't really have too much that stood out in the way of like interesting things. But then this one kind of had a return to a focus on the music. In particular, there are a couple kind of key songs that come up throughout the film that I thought really, connected with me in a way that the music of the second film just didn't. So kind of without going into spoilers, the overarching plot of this third one is kind of the stereotypical, transition from high school into college. You're in your senior year of high school. You're looking into college acceptance things. You've got like prom is certainly kind of a big element on the horizon. And those are, I would say, probably the two big touchstones. Lara Jean and Peter have kind of come up with this plan where Peter has already gotten into Stanford on a lacrosse scholarship, and so now Lara Jean is just kind of like waiting to, hear so they can kind of begin the rest of their lives together. But if you've seen any of the trailers and stuff, I would say it's not a spoiler that the inciting incident is she doesn't get into Stanford, and so she kind of has to readjust, and how she readjusts as a result of that. They do a couple of interesting like location departures where like the beginning of the movie opens with Lara Jean and her family in South Korea, kind of revisiting a place that was near and dear to her mom. And so there's like a nice little, family kind of scene to kind of kick things off there. And then the whole high school group, like the whole senior class, goes on a school trip to New York. As you do, especially as I was reminded in this film, they're based in like Portland, Oregon. So like the fact that their senior class was just going on a trip, everybody going on a trip to New York seemed like a lot. Admittedly, like in my high school choir senior trip was originally supposed to be to New York, but that kind of got waylaid because people were too concerned to travel in the year or two after the 9/11 attacks there. So yeah, I didn't end up getting to go to New York until 2 years later, the high school choir went, and it coincided with my sister's graduation. So she and I went to New York and had a great time and fell in love with the city, much like Laura Jean does in this film. So it very much becomes a film about Laura Jean as a character trying to figure out, is she going to, put how is she going to balance, her life with Peter versus her future and her personal goals and hopes and dreams and all that stuff. And if you've seen these kinds of movies before, you're probably not going to be too surprised by, some of the choices that get made. But it still had it had a nice kind of like a good mix of like wanting to see these characters grow, but also wanting to see them, stay and like find the comfort that they've known across the last couple movies. And I appreciated how ultimately the film kind of resolves all of those threads kind of together. Yeah, it was a nice little thing. One of the things that did jump out at me, and it jumped out at me a little bit in P.S. I Love You as well, is how easily these like very important characters in Laura Jean's life just kind of like completely disappear. In particular, like Josh was a very central figure of the first film, obviously as kind of like not only as like a love interest, potential love interest that kind of like kicked off the whole sending of the letters and all that stuff, but the fact that like they were best friends and he was their next door neighbor, the fact that he never came back in the second film or now in this third film is just like, that's like Josh did dirty, I think, a little bit there. But then also like, important characters that, maybe Laura Jean kind of had in the second movie as well. Just the fact that they just don't even make any kind of like cameo or return or anything in this just is like a weird element of this series, I think. I don't know if that like ties back into, the relationships in the books or anything like that, but it's just something that jumped out at me here is like why did we spend so much time with those characters if ultimately they weren't at all impactful or, really important to the overarching story, I guess. Um, Other little elements I want to give some love to. The younger sister Kitty has a fun little like romance side plot with a boy she meets in Korea. And so that's kind of like a runner throughout the series, as well as kind of I will say one of the things that I've liked kind of over the course of the series is the relationship that Lara Jean has with I forget her name, but the kind of the girl who's like the enemy in the first film. They kind of like, but they were best friends, growing up or whatever. They have like a nice reconciliation little bit in the second movie, and then you can kind of see that relationship on the road to healing and recovery here in the third film. I thought that was a nice kind of arc that kind of carries across, but ultimately, the crux of this is, of course, Laura Jean and Peter's relationship, and Lana Condor and Noah Centineo continue to just like really, knock these characters out of the park, have great chemistry together, and just have a great time. And it's fun, really, anytime they're on screen together. I really enjoyed them. So yeah, I think those are all the big bullet points I wanted to touch on. Ultimately, like I think I still probably rate the original film probably my favorite of the three, but then this one, sweeps in for a nice, solid second place over To All the Boys. P.S. I Still Love You. Yeah, Always and Forever, I think, is a great way to cap off this story, and have some great kind of iconic, seminal teen rom-com kinds of moments alongside it. Again, prom night, being a big one, and the big class trip. Those are some fun elements here. So yeah, I just if you have Netflix, check it out. Especially if you're a fan of like rom-coms. It was just a nice, heartwarming story that also does a great job of kind of capturing that feeling in high school of like everything is the most important thing ever. Yeah, lots of just joyous elements of the film. So yeah, that's really the only thing I wanted to touch on this week. I've been playing some games and stuff like that, but nothing really to dive into too deeply yet. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Like I said, another short one. Hopefully, we'll start getting back to. Sorry. Hopefully, we'll start getting back to a little bit of normalcy here in the coming weeks as things start to kind of recover in the Texas area. But until then, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. The shout outs I will give are just kind of go check out our YouTube channel, where not only are these podcasts going up, but also on Tuesdays and Thursdays we have our Let's Plays go up. And those are always just a fun time to sit down and do. And then also last week's that D Plus show was in honor of President's Day. Cameron and I sat down and we watched the Diary of a Future President on Disney Plus, and that was a fun one fun little discovery. So you can go check that episode out on the YouTube as well. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite if you feel so inclined. It helps kind of keep the lights on, pay for all the helps cover the cost of the podcast feeds and the website and all that stuff. And yeah. If you do support us on Patreon, every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode, which will be sitting down hopefully sometime this week and recording next month's, because that's coming up here as we hit the end of the month. But if you don't support us, all those episodes go up a month later for everybody, both on the podcast feeds and on the YouTube channel. So yeah, that's going to do it. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.